Tensions in Gaza continue to escalate as Israel intensifies its airstrikes, targeting key infrastructure in an effort to pressure Hamas into releasing hostages. One of the most devastating strikes hit Gaza's only specialised cancer hospital, the Turkish-Palestinian Friendship Hospital, causing significant damage and raising fears of a worsening humanitarian crisis. Reports indicate several patients and medical staff were among the casualties. According to Israel's defense ministry, the airstrikes are part of a broader strategy to cripple Hamas's operational capabilities while leveraging the pressure to secure the release of hostages. Israeli officials have reiterated that their operations will continue until all hostages are freed, despite mounting international concern. In response to the escalating violence, the United Kingdom, France and Germany have jointly called for an immediate ceasefire, urging Israel to restore humanitarian access to Gaza. The joint statement emphasises the critical need for medical aid and supplies to reach affected civilians, as hospitals are being overwhelmed with casualties. Here's what Jean-Noël Barrot, French Foreign Minister, said about the attacks.
Je déplore l'attaque inacceptable qui a touché un bâtiment des Nations Unies à Gaza, qui a blessé des personnels des Nations Unies et blessé grièvement 2 de nos compatriotes. Le consulat de France est pleinement mobilisé et en soutien, et j'exprime toutes mes pensées aux victimes, pour leurs proches et pour leurs familles.
Meanwhile, the United Nations and other humanitarian organisations have condemned the attacks on medical facilities. They stress that targeting healthcare infrastructure violates international humanitarian law. The United Nations Rights Office has expressed horror as at least 200 children and more than 110 women have been killed in Israel's renewed attacks on Gaza this week alone. The international community has expressed deep concern over the worsening conditions in Gaza, calling for restraint from all parties. Here's what Sigrid Kaag, UN Special Coordinator, said at a recent UN meeting.
Madam President, I'd also like to express my profound alarm at the resumption of hostilities in Gaza this week, which has already killed hundreds, mostly women and children. And I would like to echo the Secretary General's call for the resumption of serious negotiations for the ceasefire, unimpeded humanitarian access, and for the remaining hostages to be released immediately and unconditionally.
As the conflict intensifies, diplomatic efforts continue behind the scenes to de-escalate the situation, but both sides remain entrenched in their positions. The humanitarian impact continues to grow as strikes persist and relief efforts face severe challenges. Well, joining us to discuss the latest developments from the Middle East and Gaza is Dr. Popovky, who is a professor and vice dean at the Jindal University in New Delhi. Dr. Popovky, thank you very much for joining me today. I first of all want to look at this proposal that we've seen from the US, and Hamas are mulling it over. What is the significance of this proposal and how might it lead to further peace?
Well, it's not a good news, obviously, what's going on in Gaza. And the Israeli resumed the military fight against Hamas. So the situation is dire, and it is also dire for the civilians in Gaza. We've seen a lot of casualties over the last now 3 days. Hamas refused to release the remaining hostages, and actually the Israeli intelligence found out that 35 of those are dead bodies. So we are thinking of 59 hostages remaining, but only 24 of those are still alive. And it's really a question why they keep the dead bodies. I teach international humanitarian law for 30 years. I have never seen any military to keep dead bodies as an absolute violation of any standards, and even human standards of fighting a war. So effectively, Israel wants to continue and follow its goal to militarily destroy Hamas. Effectively, my feeling is they gave up on the hostages. They don't say so, but it looks like they are sacrificing the rest of hostages with the big goal to militarily diminish at least Hamas and effectively destroy it.
Yes, and looking at that pressure, we have seen a strike on the last functioning cancer hospital in Gaza. That's reported, of course. What is the impact on this and the ongoing humanitarian crisis that we're seeing in the Strip?
Well, again, very dire, very tragic. We see continuous civilian casualties in Gaza. On this, I will say something which might sound a bit provoking, but I wonder why those children are still there after 18 months. And just a quick comparison. When Russia invaded Ukraine, over several weeks, 8 million Ukrainians became refugees, but they were accommodated in Poland, in the Baltic states, in Slovakia, in Romania, in my own country, Bulgaria, but also in the rest of Europe. 8 million Ukrainians quickly, over several weeks, in March and April. And here we have a population, Palestinians are in Gaza, and all of them suffer from the war without any single refugee from Gaza. I'm countries, single Palestinian child who died, and Egyptians and Emirates and Qataris and all the rest of the Arab countries to accommodate refugees from Gaza. Zero. What they say, let them stay there and fight Israel. So, obviously, my criticism goes to Israel and the way they fight, and sometimes hits hospitals and schools. But also my question goes to the 19 Arab countries, how many refugees they took from Gaza so far. And it's difficult to fight, I understand, because Hamas is hiding behind human shields. All the tunnels and all the military equipment, they hide in schools and hospitals. So for the Israeli Defense Force, it's extremely difficult to fight an enemy which disregards human life and exposes, in fact, children and women in Gaza to those casualties.
Yes, and to bring an end to our discussion, you mentioned other nations and the roles they might need to play. Of course, we've had some European nations, the UK, France and Germany, calling for an immediate ceasefire with pressure coming from elsewhere. And what else can they do other than what you've mentioned already in terms of potentially looking at refugees? What more can the world leaders do to try and support an end to the fighting in Gaza?
Well, they can continue pressure on Israel, on Netanyahu, and also pressure on the Arab countries. And if they have influence over Hamas, some of them do, Egypt and Qatar in particular, to continue efforts to negotiate some final hostage release. There are only 24 alive dead. And somehow the hope is that with some diplomacy moderated by Egypt and Qatar, which have influence over Hamas, and with some pressure on Israel, on the government of Netanyahu to possibly at some point reach a new ceasefire. But again, I'm very skeptical. As I said earlier, I don't see much chance for diplomacy, at least in the next few weeks. It will be military hostilities because both Israel is determined to kind of finish the job and to destroy Hamas, and Hamas is not giving up at all. They are keeping dead bodies as hostages. What can we expect from a party in any negotiations if they don't even give the dead bodies? Very dire, very skeptical, I'm afraid.
Yes, absolutely. Dr. Veselin Ivanov-Pobovkin, thank you very much for joining us. We will, of course, continue to bring you all of the latest developments from Gaza and the Middle East as we get them. Well, we stay in the Middle East, and Israel's military says it has intercepted